what about my granddad is I loved how he was so generous, and he was a really effortlessly sweet man to the untrained eye. And then when you got to know him, you saw this just everyday effort of just being really caring and thoughtful. And I think that sometimes there's a idea that kind of sweetness and kindness is really inherent to one's being. And I think I learned so much from my grandfather about how every day you kind of renew that vow. You get to choose to be that person.
Hi, I'm Zach Newmark. This is Dam Yankee. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube for all the best interviews with the coolest performers based here in Amsterdam and those traveling through the Netherlands, like this woman to my left, Laura Maynard. Hello.
Hello.
She is a full-time ensemble performer and improv comedian in her own right at the Boom Chicago Theater here in Amsterdam. She started her career with the Second City and I.O. in my hometown of Chicago. Though she's not actually from there, she comes from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
That's right.
Laura, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here, laughing all morning already.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a delight. I've been given tea. It's a lovely, look how cozy this is. 5 stars so far. This has been great.
I mean, and what better way for two Chicagoans to meet each other in the middle of a snowstorm in Amsterdam?
I have been living for this snowstorm right now. It's like I am loving it. It is bringing me back to Chicago, slipping and sliding all around. I wiped out on my bike on Saturday night.
Oh no,
that was it was good, but it was good. It was good for the bones.
It was
good for the spirit. It was good for the spirit.
I mean, people listening who or watching who are not in the Netherlands don't realize that. Everybody is still biking. Everybody's still biking through the city, or a lot of people are still biking.
Yeah.
And, it's all icy roads and icy streets. And
it's impressive.
You gave it your best shot.
I really did. I'm not a great biker. I love it. I do it so much. And I'd done it before here. I had biked some in Chicago, mostly in Chattanooga. I lived with my grandparents for like 6 months in COVID times. Mm-hmm. And that was biking around my like little tiny hometown was a joy of my life. And when I got this job, I was really excited to get to bike around again.
I mean, what's so funny is that, you spent this bit of time living with your grandparents, and you actually made your grandparents maybe even more well-known than you're well-known because you got your grandparents like national TV attention in the U.S. even.
Wait, I forgot it. I did. I still have the videos. It was so funny. They, in COVID, my grandparents just sent because nothing was open, and they had fully of their own idea. This was actually before I lived with them, and they had this idea that my grandfather was going to pretend to give my grandmother a haircut because she couldn't go to the salon to get her haircut, but he was going to do it with big shears, right. big like garden shears. And so it's my grandmother, sitting down and being like, okay, Johnny, just take a little bit off the top there. And then he's like, Lou, is this what you want? And they're just being adorable in it. And I loved it because my dad sent me this because, they just sent it in like the little family group chat.
Right.
And I was like, I have to post this. This is too adorable, and so many people in that time were just posting, the ways we were all staying sane. And that video of my grandparents was really a life preserver for me. And then it got like weirdly picked, I guess not weirdly, it's precious, but picked up by, it was like E! News shared it. And
so I saw it from the Today Show had shared it, which, a national morning television show in the U.S. And
I'll
what
give it to you. I will absolutely share it with you.
I'm looking at the article, and here's an article written by an actual news organization, and not even bothering to refer to your grandmother by her name, and just like keep calling her Grams in the article. Grams does this. Grams does that. And which I'm like, who's writing this?
they said we asked and everyone called her Grams, so we didn't have another name on record. Oh God, that is really funny. And they should Velma Lou Almond Maynard if you need to. We need to make an amendment to that.
Or if you need a haircut.
Or if you need a haircut, granddad, granddad and Grams. That oh my God, I haven't thought about that in a little bit. I love that. I also love talking about my grandparents. That makes me so happy that we've kicked it off this way. They're like my that they both passed now, but they are like truly they were the closest family that I have, and I loved living with them. Was so wonderful. It's such a chapter of my life I like really fondly look back upon. It's so sweet.
I mean, it's not something that you hear about often, as someone in their 20s moving in with their grandparents and loving moving in with their grandparents.
Loved every second of it.
I mean, what was the reason for that? Because I also going through older social media posts of yours. You see all these posts of my favorite person in the world referring to your grandfather, or sitting next to him playing solitaire and things like that.
Oh, so
right, I'm wondering, what is that about these people in specifically that you resonate with?
My grandfather especially, who it's so sweet that I love that is my social media footprint. I think sometimes I get really tough on myself for not like posting more about my work or things, but then I also get really happy that is what I have out there. That makes me really delighted to no end. But what about my granddad is I loved how he was so generous, and he was a really effortlessly sweet man to the untrained eye. And then when you got to know him, you saw this just everyday effort of just being really caring and thoughtful. And I think that sometimes there's a idea that kind of sweetness and kindness is really inherent to one's being. And I think I learned so much from my grandfather about how every day you kind of renew that vow. You get to choose to be that person, because he did not have a easy go of it in this life or this world by any means. And to leave this world with such a reputation of being the person that you called up when you needed something, or you knew that you could really rely on him. And it was just I love every part of him. I've said my whole adult life that if you meet me and you like anything about me, it is him. Like it's him in me. It's him in it's him in me. It's him in my he is all of the best bits of me.
Well, what is it about your grandparents that sort of is set apart from maybe your parents, or a more kind of direct family relationship?
Those guys are cool too. Big fan. Big fan. And unless this podcast, goes into the afterlife, I should probably, shout out those guys too. But my grandparents, I feel a really special closeness to them. I think from a young age, they did they lived really close to me. All growing up, maximum lived 15 minutes away. So I felt really lucky that, I had my mom and dad, and then I felt like Grams and Granddad were this other kind of almost, like parental unit in the household. And my grandmother was such a funny character, and really got a fun, well-rounded, I feel like between the four of them, just a really funny, they raised me with all different kind of these styles of varying degrees of goofiness and sternness, and both my parents were teachers, their whole careers too. I'm dancing. What was the question again
are the grandparents that we're talking about? Were they your mom's parents or dad's parents?
Dad's parents.
Your dad's parents.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And your family. You have a lot of siblings, or not so many?
I have an older sister. Mm-hmm. It's just the two of us, and she's 7 years older than me.
Okay, but that whole side of the family is kind of huge. Also. It was
large,
like a whole bunch of great grandchildren, a whole bunch of grandchildren, 4 or 5 aunts and uncles.
That took up most
just from that side alone
of the obit was listing everybody off.
When you're paying per character, it ends up being a really expensive obituary when you have a big family.
We did. Remember we were like, Grams, because Granddad passed before Grams, and we were like, Grams, can we please add a few more things that Granddad did that were really notable? And she was like, we need every single.
You have to do a crowdfunding campagn.
Exactly.
We
were kind of like, okay, maybe we're not saying we need to leave any names off, but maybe consolidating some of the descriptors of some of these. But it was so funny.
What did what changed for you after they passed, or or have you figured out a different way to kind of carry on in that spirit?
Oh, I'm a very a big believer in that love is something like matter that can neither be created nor destroyed. So when somebody leaves, it just finds a new shape. And I've been really, really lucky that I feel like, because I feel so close to them, and I've had other friends and I've no more living grandparents, and I feel really lucky that I got to kind of have an interesting kind of relationship with all of them, the two on my mom's side as well. And I also was a kid. Most of my friends in my youth were the people that lived at the local nursing home, and probably until I was like age 10, I would say most of my best friends were people that lived at a nursing home.
A rotation of 90-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, kind of, because you'd show up and it's like, where's this person? And they passed, so I got kind of exposed to death, at an earlier age in a way that I don't think a lot of kids were kind of getting exposed to, that it wasn't just like, oh, this kind of far off family member. It was somebody who was like, oh, that you were visiting every week and connecting with, and for them to pass. So I feel like an amalgamation of all of these people. Laura is a product of everyone who has loved me into being already.
Has this given you some sort of, I don't know, some sort of unusual perspective on life and death, considering, at such a young age, you were spending time with people who were dropping like flies. I don't want to say... I don't want to say that it's linked to like your visits or anything like that, because I'm sure you sparked joy, so to speak.
The stories of the cat that wanders around nursing homes that knows when someone's gonna die. That's me, but it was like an 8-year-old little Tennessee girl just wandering in, and they were like, "Oh God, get away, get away from her!"
When you're in the halls.
Yes, I definitely do think it made it more of something that was just a part of life. And I think I feel like most people, it's not something I hope happens anytime soon. But I do think that being around it made it feel less scary as a kid. I think it was something that when you're a kid and you're learning about the vocab of the world, you're sort of learning okay, this is what love is, and this is what marriage is, and this is what death is. And so I feel like in the hierarchy of things, death felt more of, oh, this is something kind of that everybody goes through, and it's tough because you miss this person. But my parents were really great about I just remember having really great conversations with them about when people passed away, or when my grandparents had passed away, and that we get to talk about them, and that feels like something really they're excited and kind of love sharing that. Like my mom's dad passed away a month after I was born, fairly unexpectedly. Like he was sick, but not, they did not think that he was going to die. You know?
Again, you come in the room and then somebody exits the room. What are we? I'm starting to get a little
guest on this show.
I'm starting to get a little worried.
Don't make me use my powers.
On Marcus.
On Marcus. I'm gonna use it on Marcus.
Yeah, go that way.
That's right. It's about proximity. It's just whoever's physically in the room closest to me.
But I mean, your mom's dad. Your mom's dad is also quite an impressive person in his own right, as well.
Yep. He was a really. My mom has told me my whole life how similar we are, the two of us. He was a really outspoken civil rights activist in Arkansas, in a lot of the civil rights movements there. He marched on Washington. Yep. He saw, he took a group of his students from he was fired from his position. I believe he was a principal or an administrator of a school because the school had elected a young Black girl to be their student body president, and the school system had told him as the administrator he needed to overturn that, and he refused to do that and was fired, and then took that girl and that student body collective to the March on Washington.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So, and how is it that, what is it between you and him that are so similar?
Oh, I think that growing up around that, I was really lucky that my parents were both very liberal, like open-minded folks in a part of the United States that does not have a great reputation for being either of those things. And I think his influence, like Gramps, is a lot of great grandparents names here. We got. Yeah. It's also very so Southern to be like Gramps and Granddaddy and so. But Raymond was his name, and but to have his influence, I do think that we owe so much to our ancestors and being able to draw these lines of, what they stood for. And I think that every generation, we move the ticker along in different directions. And I think that having, and my grandmother, my mom's mom as well, and my dad's parents too, were all very like liberal, open-minded folks that I just grew up thinking that I could explore and sort of have. I was engaged in politics from like a really young age. My older sister got, and I hope she's okay with me sharing this, but it's I love this story. But she kind of had a reputation at school for really. She was brilliant, valedictorian. She's still truly one of like the smartest, brightest people I know, and she really fought some of the teachers on, sort of like if the language was a little bit too middle of the road, my sister was kind of the one raising her hand and being like, I think that I think we need to be a little bit more direct in the language around the Korean War, Mr. Coach Skiles or whatever. That's actually his real name.
Sorry, Coach.
Sorry, Coach Skiles. But I hope you're well. I hope. I think what were you, the soccer coach? I hope the girls are doing great. The girls.
Let's dox him further.
Oh my God! Yeah, let's go. I'm going to run down Coach Skiles and just absolutely skewer this poor man. But I remember being, a kid. My sister missed voting in the 2008 election by like 5 days or something. And that was a big thing in our household. She was so mad that she couldn't, but that she missed being 18 by a few days. So I remember, from a young age being like excited to be involved in that and being excited. And one of the huge reasons I moved to Chicago and picked the school that I picked was because I knew I would get to be around a ton of different, people from all over the place and be exposed to a lot of like-minded folks, but from maybe different, kind of corners of the world, like
all sorts of different backgrounds. Because, here you would come out of what sounds like a really tight-knit family in Tennessee. Couldn't have been that easy making the decision to, go to Chicago.
It was honestly probably for my parents upsettingly easy. Like as a teenager, I will say my older sister went to school in Seattle, which no one had ever perceived in our little town. When people were like, "You're going,"
there's a whole half of the country west of a river.
West of a river, this is. Why would you go out there? What do they have that we don't?
Right.
And so my sister again paved the way for going out there, exploring the world. I have talking about kind of family units too. I'm also really lucky that I have kind of this lovely little like God family unit.
Oh, cool.
That are some folks that my parents met because they were kind of in this friend group in college, and basically everyone in the friend group just grew up and married each other, and then they all had kids, and we've all been kind of raised together, and we spend every New Year's together, and they are some of the closest people in my life to me. And so I grew up, there's 9 kids of all of us, plus 5 partners and things now too. But I was the 8th in the 9. And so I kind of grew up watching them, and they all were really engaged in like traveling and going, we all lived in different parts of the South, but our parents really encouraged us, not just the ones that were blood related to us, but these other bonus parents, as I like to think about them, that were like, oh, the world is so much bigger than the South. And when I realized that I needed to go to Chicago, I needed to be near Second City, I needed to be near improv, I was looking at schools, and it was really, Were
you already eyeballing comedy at that point?
Oh,
not just
I
a
knew.
theater nerd, but also just sort of, comedy was the way you wanted to go at that point.
Specifically improv, yeah. And I was like, oh, I need to be in Chicago.
What was the influence that made you want to go towards improv?
I did a lot of community theater as a kid, and there wasn't a theater program at my high school. And so I did community theater. So much fun, huge fan of that. But I remember being a teenager and kind of being like, this is really serious. I want to do this, but I don't know how to do it. And it's not this serious. I didn't love the repetition of it. There were some parts of it that I was like, man, if I could pick and choose the bits of this that I like, it's not quite forming up.
Do you mean the repetition of doing the same show night after night? Yeah,
doing the same show kind of night after night. And I really liked being in front of a crowd. I realized I really liked writing too from a young age. I wrote some kind of sketches and sketch shows with my fellow teens, my fellow kids. And then when I was like 13, I got a friend's parents, shout out Rodney and Julie Van Valkenburg, took us to go and see the Second City National Touring Company, came to the local university, and I saw that show and was like, cut, print, done.
Right.
This is everything that I didn't connect with about theater, because they're kind of themselves, but they're doing stuff that's clearly rehearsed. But then there's parts of it where they just get to improvise, and they're doing, sketches like that I had seen on SNL, that have really fun, but they get to play around with this huge variety. And I went home. I think I went home and like Googled like what is
whose line is it
what
anyway?
Is whose line is it? What is just like do you know in Twilight when Bella's are you familiar? Have you?
Oh, I'm a little bit too old for that, I think.
God, I honestly
I'm too old and my daughter's too young. And so there's this Twilight fell in this sort of like mystery segment.
You have to at least when we leave here today, and maybe we'll stop and we'll do it right now, but you have to look up. There's a great moment in Twilight where Bella, who's Kristen Stewart, suspects Edward of being a vampire. I don't know why I'm setting this up so seriously.
This is great. Did you bring any clips with you?
she's like, he's done tons of this stuff, like that's made it super clear, and also the audience knows that he's a vampire because that's like why we're here, right? Like we know why are we spending so much time getting to this point. But she Googles, she Googles like what vampire over the years, and it's just like, you know, early 2000s sort of like a Bing, you know, search results of like lives forever, is cold, all of these, you know, it's like old paintings of like beautiful women being attacked by that.
Hates garlic.
It's just like all of these things, and she's reading it so intently, and that's what it was like for me.
That's wow, a really long way to go to get to feeling a love for improv? Is that what we're talking about?
That's what it was like. I went home and I was like, I got to know everything about this because I want to do it. And I want to do Second City. I want to, it's honestly, the older and further I get from being that 13-year-old kid, I'm so proud of her for like knowing that so intently, you know? It's really incredible because it gave me so much, you know, this work can wear you down, and to like still to this day feel so close to like that performance and what it felt like, and return to that a lot is something I think about all the time.
Is there anybody that was in that Second City touring cast that you remember?
I have tried. I have like, I can tell you like the program and where it was. And I've asked some people when I worked at Second City in the back office to try, because they keep a really good database of what shows and what they do at certain theaters. But I think it was like right in a weird window where I'm not quite sure. I haven't been able to piece, because there's 3 touring companies, you know, so it's like I wouldn't have known kind of who was in that one unless I'd like kept a program or something. But I like to think, because of some of the stuff that I know that was sort of touring at that time, and then because at Second City, the touring company does these like archive. I love being a Second City. I'm a Second City archive dweeb, loud and proud. But, you know, we tour with these archive scenes. So kind of one of the appeals is like, oh, you're coming and seeing the touring company, which are this next generation of comedians. And they're doing some original material as well as beloved sketches from, you know, the likes of Tim Robinson and Steve Carell and you know Sam Richardson, Rashawn Scott, all these incredible greats. Yeah. Oh my God, like a whole best of. So I like to think in sort of the, you know, image of that day in my mind that statistically, because of how many Second City sketches I've done, I bet I have done one of, if not more of, the scenes that I, as a 13-year-old, probably saw that night.
That's so funny.
I know.
What was it about, you know, getting to Chicago? You know, you started at Columbia College.
So important. I am always so quick to tell, you know, because when you say Columbia, Ivy League, that's a huge one.
Right.
That is not where I went. That is not what the degree is from.
But you jump in, you're going to Columbia in Chicago. And then how is it that you get from, you know, being a theater student to actually being part of some of these theater companies?
Yeah, I went to, and I really picked Columbia College Chicago because it had this comedy writing and performance degree that I think at the time, no other school in the country had. So it was, you know, you're getting a BA, you're getting this bachelor in theater. So you're hitting all of these really good acting chops and kind of acting foundational things. But then it's specified to comedy. And one of the parts of the degree is that you do a term, we lovingly called it our semester abroad, but it's all classes at Second City. So you get to really take, you take like a history class there and a acting class, a movement class, improv. It's a very fun, it really did feel, that was such a memorable part of my experience for me. But I was in Chicago, and I knew, and I was just absolutely chomping at the bit to be in a big city. The fact that there were trains there was crazy to me. I was like just so excited to be outside that I would go and just see shows all the time. And when you go and see shows in Chicago so much and you do jams and you're making your own teams with your buddies, it happens. And it happened for me really naturally that I just was on stage all the time. And then before I knew it, I was like, well, I want to take classes. I was like 19, taking classes at IO, going through their program. I was math, years. I was 21. I was 20 when I was on my like first Herald team at IO. So I just had like and again, I'm so grateful for it, and I'm grateful to still have it, that hunger of wanting to go and watch the thing as well as do the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that for you? What was that transition like going from, here you'd been doing community theater, here you had been doing, college classes, and then suddenly now you're actually a professional kind of, basically doing what you had set out to do?
Wild. So I moved to Chicago in 2015, and then in 2021, the first kind of generals auditions that Second City was doing post like COVID, kind of their first thing, starting to figure out what that might look like for them as a theater after sort of the lockdown. And I got invited to do that audition. It was such a fun, to this day, like one of my favorite auditions I've ever done. It was such a fun day. And it was kind of fun too, because I was doing it and I was like, well, this is the dream. This is for, especially at that time in my life, being, you're auditioning to be an understudy in the building, to then just get to, be close to the thing that I wanted to do. And so I was like, well, being here is great. And it was actually like one of the least nervous I've ever been, because I was like, I haven't done improv in like a year and a half. I haven't been on stage in a year and a half. The last time, I did improv, it felt like the bar was so low for myself. I was like, this is just cool that we're here. I missed this so much.
What year was that?
This was 2021. Yeah.
Okay.
In like August, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I got hired to be an understudy. And then I was an understudy at Second City for a little over like 3.5 years. And then I moved here for this job.
Being an understudy at Second City, is that enough to live on?
Nay.
Real fast switch to the Dutch language there.
Yes. No, it is not enough to live off of. I had a hodgepodge of other day jobs and things that I worked on. I was really lucky. I'd say for the last year of understudying, I was able to teach at Second City more. I taught at Second City for almost that whole time that I was an understudy too. I started teaching their youth and teen children improv. Sign me up. I love it. I miss it. I wish I could do it all the time. And I did that, and then I started teaching more, and that paid really well. Love my union, love my teachers union at Second City, and I did that pretty regularly, and then coached, and then did kind of odd jobs and stuff here and there. I did for a really long time. My day job was doing, I wore many hats for a organization that ran progressive political campaigns all over the country.
Okay.
It's like I would do kind of like random hiring help and admin. I love doing admin work. I could just clickety clack in front of a computer all the live long day, which is so funny because a lot of times when you meet comedians and other performer folks, like that's the side of it that comes really difficult to them.
It's the sitting in one place. It's indoors in a cubicle.
I could gaze at a to-do list all my life.
Did you ever get fired from a job?
Did I ever get fired? No.
No.
I haven't. I don't think, unless I'm.
Did you ever storm out quitting a job?
Oh God, I wish. I wish I was that interesting. I was just the most like affable teen and child and to this day adult. Yeah, no, never been fired, never been stormed out. If I had an issue, I would send a really long like email that had a bunch of things like, I respect you so much and this is coming from a place of love for this institution. I'm angry because I want it to be better. Like I'm very action oriented in all of my criticisms.
What was it actually that got you out of Chicago and to Amsterdam? Because now you're almost here for a full year.
Yeah.
Or you're coming up on a year.
Coming up on a year.
Did Boom Chicago reach out to you, or did you reach out to them?
I really love my story with getting this job because I love Boom, and Boom was something that had been on sort of the vision board for a really long time. Kind of similarly, when I was a teenager, I got really good advice from a teacher in high school. I think we had to do one of those reports on what you want to be when you grow up or something. And I got really good advice, which was look up the resume of someone with your dream job. And I was a teenager who loved SNL, but I didn't really want to be on SNL. I was really more interested in people who had written for SNL. That was something that I was really kind of obsessed with, was like going and reading books and interviews with people who had written for SNL, back in the day or whatever. And so Boom was a place that had kind of popped up similarly in the way that like Second City pops up. And when you're reading sort of people's bios, there's just these theaters and places that keep coming up. Mm-hmm. And so I remember being like, that's really cool. Being in Amsterdam, I'd always really wanted to travel, very much small town girl vibes of get me out of here. I want to see the world. And so when I was older and I was looking for my first, I had a little bit of spending money for the first time in my life. It was the summer, I was 20, and my buddies and I were looking for a place to go and travel. And we were like, let's do Europe this year, kind of the whole classic on a dime, American European thing where we, pick a couple cities and go there.
Europe, and then I'm going to Europe.
And you're just like, I'm going to Europe and I'm going to these places. And so we went, I did like a week in Amsterdam and then a week in Prague. And when I was in Amsterdam, I really picked Amsterdam because me and my friend at the time, who I was with, we wanted to see a Boom Chicago show. Mm-hmm. And so I came and I saw the show, and I could tell you where I sat and what I ordered at the bar. And our beloved Simon Lucas was in the show. That was his first summer in the theater.
Okay.
I can tell you, picture him in the show, and now he's my friend. I can't believe it. But I saw that.
And such a sweet guy.
It's
also. Such a sweet guy.
If you're listening to this podcast, keep listening to this podcast and just go to Simon Lucas's Instagram, hit follow, obsess over him the way that I do.
Yeah, and then add our episode with him.
And
as
then
the next one in your playlist.
Cue that up. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh yeah. If you love me, you can hear all of my dearest friends.
You get all of your jokes from him.
Yeah, I do. You will. You listen to me and be like, wait a second. It's just Simon moving through me right now. But so fast forward to last year, so Stacey Smith, who also has a great episode of your podcast, and who runs the Academy at Boom. She is a phenomenal improviser and does shows at Boom. Was in the cast, for a while too, and is still in the cast. But she and I knew each other because she coached my Herald team when I was in 2018 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Kind of right before.
That would be just a couple years before she moved out here.
Yeah. So I remember, going to Stacey's like farewell show when she was moving over here for this job. And I loved being coached by her. I was such a fan of kind of her style, and she was one of those people that I loved following on Instagram. I loved seeing what she was doing over here. I think that Stacey is to this day such a hero for me in terms of like what community looks like in improv, because she's just so great about checking in with people and sharing things. And when I first started teaching, I remember sending Stacey kind of a message being like, I know that you had taught these youth and teen things at Second City. So we'd had some really fun kind of overlaps of she had also kind of done the whole Second City, performing in different capacities in that building. And so over the years of her being my coach, we had kind of developed almost this like, pen pal-esque sort of friendship of just kind of staying connected, and every few months, like, commenting on fun, projects that each other were working on. And when I felt like, I think it was in like 2023, I kind of had this moment that year where I was like, I'm kind of getting good at this. I'm getting good at this thing. I really think I'm doing good stuff at Second City.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a couple of really good runs of being, because when you're an understudy, it can be, that has to come from within you, because you're not getting it from the job itself, because you're going in sometimes 14 times in a month, and then you go 6 months without going in at all. So it really forces you in I think a really good way to have to conjure that value up from within. And so I sent Stacey a message being like, hey, if you guys are ever, I have no idea what the process is like of getting hired at Boom Chicago, but if this is something that you guys ever have an opening for and you think that I might fit the bill for what you're looking for, let me know. Let a girl know. The inbox is open.
So that's about 2 years, or almost
I was like
3 years ago.
3 years ago. And
what I'm wondering, though, also is if Second City was kind of like this sort of fantasy for you, a place where you really wanted to work at, a place where you really wanted to be on stage.
Yeah.
Here you're an understudy. Were you at a point where you were starting to feel like you were bumping against a ceiling there, that you weren't going to crack it and get into the main cast?
It wasn't that I wasn't going to bump it, because I really did love the grind of that. I loved that there was no promise of that. I really loved the work for what it was. And I was at a point where then last year, when Stacey reached out and was kind of like, hey, it looks like we might hire a couple people, it looks like we might need to hire a couple people. You should send some stuff in. It came at like the perfect moment that I really needed some external validation that I was in the right zone. Like
Why? What was going on at that moment?
I just needed, I was in that, that understudying slog, and I wasn't really hitting a ceiling, but I was really feeling like I'm ready to do more than perhaps not even just Second City as like a building, but just kind of my creative ideas. I was like, I maybe just need to kind of do something that changes this up. Applying, just the act of applying for Boom, like sending in sort of the clips. I remember just the next few weeks, I had such a renewed sense of like, I felt like I had better shows and things in Chicago, because I just think I was just in one of those like slumps where you need something to change it up. You need something to, I kind of said this earlier, and it's a phrase I say a lot, which is just a constant renewing of your vows to yourself of why you're doing this thing. And sometimes even places that you love, like Second City, they're not the sole source of that, and they shouldn't be. So it was great to put my energy into not just another theater, another institution, but just like in myself, kind of just even being like, hey, throwing my hat in for this feels good. It feels like this is a move in a good direction for me.
Were you having thoughts about going to LA, going to New York, going somewhere else in the US, or even somewhere else outside of the US?
If I hadn't have gotten this job, I think I would be buried in Chicago. I was going to ride or die. I may still be buried there. There's not I don't think there has to be
There's
like
still time.
I was going to die. I was planning my death because I, as we remember from earlier, am the harbinger of death. And I loved and still love, Chicago is my favorite place to be on the planet. I love it. It was, I love the size of it. I love the community there. I have spent time in New York and LA, and I love them as cities to visit. And I'm never saying never. And I am really aware of this. A lot of the work I do is so impermanent, and this podcast will live forever. So I don't want to dog on these cities, but both times that
they're both they're both great cities.
Amazing cities.
I don't
not for
either
me.
want to live there.
Correct.
You know?
Yeah. Not for me. Need for my. And I really, especially when I was in LA, and my Chicago buddies that have lived in LA, I've talked about just how huge it is. It's massive. Oh my God. I started to say it's fucking huge, and then I censored myself for some reason. I was
don't know
what
why.
if the children are listening?
No, we're way past that point.
Way past that point.
Yeah.
But it's huge, and just when you go in a place and and in Chicago, I knew, and I fell more in love with it every year.
And what do you have in terms of a connection with Amsterdam now?
A real affection for the place where I work. I really love Boom Chicago, and especially the academy, the students that we magnetize, the people that travel from all over to see there. And I love the work that I'm doing there. I love who I am outside of this schedule. This is the closest to like a 9-to-5 that I've ever had. In Chicago, it was this constant kind of scraping together, work and money and everything, all of those stressors. But I really feel like here with this job at Boom, I get the days to myself. I get to do things around the house. I get to have little hobbies. I mean, I go see movies all the time. Things that when you are so in the grind and in the thick of it. And I'm still very much a grinder by heart. What a crazy sentence,
we'll make that'll be your tagline. We'll make sure to get the E in grinder also, just so people aren't confused.
Grinded by heart is I love the pace of work-life balance here. I love unlearning all of the kind of horrors of American capitalism and work ethic that are not extinct here, but I feel I've gotten some really, really great lessons that wherever I go next, or if this is my final resting place, I've just been really grateful about the culture of this town. I love cannot say enough nice things about my colleagues that I work with.
And also you had quite a unique way of coming here as well, because you know people on your team who you also knew in Chicago as well, because you got hired at the same time as one of your other castmates.
That's right, me and Deshaun,
right?
Yes, who also has a great episode of this. You guys don't realize when you're listening to this, you're actually getting great bang for your buck to go back and check out these other episodes.
You don't even have to go to a show at Boom Chicago anymore. Yeah.
You could what you should do, grab 6 of your friends' phones, hit play on all of our episodes at the same time, and then you'll notice at the 55-minute mark of all of them, we say this. No, I'm just kidding. But go full conspiracy.
They should totally try that theory out. I'm saying. But, because you and Deshaun knew each other in Chicago.
I'm obsessed with him. Yeah.
You guys are roommates?
We're roommates. Yep. I made my Twilight reference earlier. Have you watched Arrested Development?
Sure.
Okay, great. Are you familiar with the Gene Parmesan running joke?
Yeah.
So, listeners, if you don't know what this is, Gene Parmesan is a side character that pops up on the show sometimes, but every time he pops up, there's a character, Lucille, who gets really excited because he introduces himself and he goes, Gene Parmesan, and then she always goes, I'll try to do this off so it's not really loud in your ears, but she's like, ah. and she just screams and gets excited. That's how I feel when I see Deshaun every day. And it's like I get so delighted every time.
Be exhausting.
It's actually renewing. It's really renewing is the name of the word. Renew and grind is really the names of the.
I think that's the name of the next Boom show. Renew and grind.
Andrew, I've got your next thing right now. And I love him so much. And I can't imagine doing this, especially those first couple months without him. I really was so lucky. And to come over with, usually when Boom hires folks, it's like one or two people, And so for us to get three, me, Deshaun, and then our Meg Buzza, who, if you can believe it, has a great episode of this podcast. But the three of us came over, and that every Boom show is 5 people. So now the majority of the cast that you're actually seeing are these new we are these new people that all came here at the same time. And I loved this feeling of when we came over here that almost immediately, I mean literally from the first rehearsal, it felt like when we would talk to the vets, it felt like a new little mini era of making a show, of everybody's just energy is so positive. I'm truly obsessed with all of them. I really, really love that. And
what are you all doing now that's maybe different than what Boom Chicago's done in years past?
I think that we are constantly asking ourselves, like, okay, if this game, this thing that has been like something that Boom has done for ages, right? That's like a guaranteed, it's in the running order. It's in this slot. That's like, we put it there because it's a banger, right? That's not enough for us. Like, we want to keep going into the lab, and we're not, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But we are constantly doing these little tune-ups that it's not like I don't think that they were doing that in the past, but I feel like, obviously, because, I'm kind of going off of what I've talked to like the vets about, but I feel like what we are really bringing to the table, which is this constant kind of hunger, maybe this little 13-year-old Laura coming into play, but that hunger of not being unsatisfied with, okay, business as usual, but constantly trying to push for, it's not like more laughs, more edgy, more anything, but just really trying to make a better program for everybody involved, and making it a really positive experience for us. And like the happier we are with how we do things and run rehearsals at Boom, the show is better because we are inviting the audience into a just better experience top to bottom. Is the pace of the show faster now than it was? Because I remember seeing a show there really soon after I moved here, almost 20 years ago. Oh my God. And in their old theater space, so the one on the Lights of Plain Square instead of where, across from the water hole, baby. That's right. And instead of where it is now. It's beloved. And I would say that the shows at Boom Chicago now are maybe faster, or I would argue even maybe more sophisticated than 20 years ago. Do you feel that the shows have kind of developed in that way? Audiences in Amsterdam have probably changed. English penetration was always high here, but maybe, maybe it's easier to do faster, funnier gags now than it was then. And so I'm wondering what's different. Oh, that's such a good question. I think, and again, kind of piecemealing some of what I'm going to say from just my, obsessive kind of talking with people about what other, iterations or eras of the Boom cast were. But I think sometimes you get this interesting thing with you want the pace to be, you want to hit that sweet spot, right? You want the pace to be fast enough that the attention is there, because you're competing with the phone. You're competing with these people have paid money. They've maybe asked someone they have a crush on to be here. They've worn something nice maybe. They are here on their vacation. This is part of maybe a precious. They only have 3 nights in Amsterdam and they're coming to be here for the night. So like a lot of pressure to make this something that is high quality and top to bottom feel like a really full production. And then in terms of kind of what you're saying about the pace, I have found that actually, you know, in terms of, comparing it to my 10 years of Chicago improv, you know, we do more, we'd call it like short form improv. We do more gamey things for the audience because it is such a great entry point into improv. And we do that because we're like leading the audience who, you know, a lot of them, English is their second language. So I get really fascinated too with the pacing of something I've noticed in this almost year of doing shows here is that when I am on stage, I really try to kind of slow down. I'm not slowing down the joke side of things, but I really try to make sure that like I want people to understand what I'm saying because I know that there's a lot of folks in the house that are doing, you know, translations and stuff kind of in their head, in their minds. And so trying to make it so that I'm not going so fast that I leave some people behind, and then but striking that kind of that sweet spot of go just fast enough to keep their attention, but also be patient, stay with me now that I've got your attention. You know, sometimes we'll kick the show off with something that's a little bit of those faster, kind of more gamey things. But one thing I really love that we did, that Andrew, our wonderful leader, he has said that they've not been able to make work in a while, and we do it, and it's the thing that kicks off our main stage show that's running right now, and we love it. And
what is it?
It's
I mean, you
it's
spent
a I know
20
I'm
minutes
I'm
describing Twilight clips.
It was really important to me.
I'm sorry. I understand.
It's this game called 5 Questions that Deshaun brought in, and we do it. We kick the show off by telling the audience a little something about ourselves, and then asking them that question. So you basically answer something and then ask them to answer that same thing too. And sometimes we ask things that are right from the top, a little bit more vulnerable questions, or just more interesting kind of questions. We will say, you know, things about recent like breakups or stuff that you're going through. You know, we try to mix it up for each other. We'll tell like little childhood stories. One of my favorite ones that I've done is, you know, I'll be like, hi friends, you know, I'm Laura. Great. This is their first time kind of seeing me in the show. And like, hey, you know, something about me, the first boy that I ever had a crush on, his name was Bo Sahai. And I had a crush on him because he had a pool and a dog. What is a reason that you have had a crush on someone? And so we have kind of this longer intro of the thing, and we actually get a chance to, even before we've started doing any improv for them, we have this relationship with the audience. And so, you know, sometimes people say things, you know, one time somebody said like to that question, you know, nice mouth. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Who said that? Show yourself, you know, Emil, pull the lights up. Like, what was that? Nice mouth. Whoa. Anything else? Like, and so we get to kind of have this moment of, you know, not razzing them, but really connecting with them before we've even asked them to laugh at our jokes in a scene. You know, we're really asking them to just have a conversation with us, and they don't actually have to laugh. Sometimes they can just and preferably they're just really honest with us, and we can do hopefully the funny stuff. And then we do 5, almost like a little mini long form to kind of start the show. So we then do 5 scenes that are all inspired by everyone's question. And then we go into some more of those kind of patented boom musical short formy gamey things after that.
What is it that makes the 5 questions bit work now that didn't work before?
I think it's us. I really do. I think it's Deshaun and I's love of long form. I think it's you know, everybody else's like ability to just kind of attack these jokes. We try to play these scenes in a way that, you know, we're not if we get from the audience, if we get nice mouth, like this great, I'm so glad we're running with this great example. Like, we're showing them that they're in on the joke immediately. They don't have to work really hard to get there. We're starting all of these scenes with a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm, but we're not immediately making them have to laugh, be at a 10. It feels like such a good place to start the show, to be like, hey, come with us. Come on this journey with us. You're in good hands. We know our shit. Like we are really good at this, hopefully.
Is there, as a cast of the 5 of you, is there a sort of patience that you all have to be able to let the 5 questions thing play out?
Yeah.
So that, and then I imagine you call back to different, throughout the show.
Throughout the show, sometimes sometimes that's where you get the juiciest stuff on there, and it's also such a good diagnostic for what the audience is kind of made up of, because sometimes we'll have a really electric 5 questions, and we can kind of get a good feel of, oh, cool, okay, we got some weirdos in the house tonight. Like, we got some people who are down for the weirder stuff. Or sometimes we take a big swing and 5 questions and it whiffs at the back of the room.
Right.
And we all kind of look at each other and we're like, okay, cool, noted. We're not going off road. We're not going off, we're not going to change direction, but we're going to take note of that. I love having a relationship with the crowd that is, I am listening to you, but you are not the gods of this room. We are actually, we are the ones in charge, and it is okay if you are not laughing nonstop the whole time.
Is there one of these moments that kind of blew up in your face specifically?
Is there one of these? I mean, surely there must be. I famously, as soon as I am off stage, whatever just happened, I affectionately say that's none of my business. Whatever happened up there, that's not my business. That leaves me almost immediately. So
really,
yeah, I do. I have a good or maybe bad. I don't know. Time will tell. But I love the impermanence of the thing we do. I love that I do 6 shows, 5 nights a week. That sometimes things pop out. And when they do, it's usually because something unexpected has happened, not because it was like a perfect crafted callback joke kind of thing. So
it's a different perspective, because some of your castmates have different relationships with bombing on stage, where it kind of stays with them, sometimes becomes a little bit of a difficult thing to get over.
No, not me. I have other stuff that is, that keeps me up at night. I don't have room for, God, I should have done that walk on at that moment. I should have been a doctor instead of I will, every now and again, if it feels like a more brutal show or something, what I'll do is I will go backstage. I told this to Meg actually last night, and I'm trying to be better about this, but I affectionately call it, I Blair Witch myself. I put myself in a corner and kind of like turn their phone down, and I'm just like, be mad at yourself right now. Like, if there's anything that you need to sort of like self, fucking flagellate about right now, like do that now, and then you don't have to carry that to the bar, because I think there's nothing worse. That's something I teach when I teach improv students. I'm like, I'm really strict about with my advanced group that I will, or advanced groups, or like when I'm a director or directing things, I will give short notes right after the thing, and then I will say, go out and celebrate that you did the thing. Tomorrow morning or afternoon or the next rehearsal, that is when we will get into the weeds. That is when we will fix the thing, because right now you're actually too close to the thing, in my opinion, to really allow for perhaps the deeper understanding of what happened. Because I think if you go in, you do the show, you get 40 minutes of notes afterwards, then you're at the bar with your with your castmates and your buddies, and you're just head in your hands like, I can't believe we fucked that up so much. I can't believe Laura was that doctor in that scene. And you're too, that's not for me the where the texture of this thing is.
Is the doctor in the scene, is that a specific reference to
I
something?
don't,
where
again,
you're
it's like, I don't know why
I really
I'm
wish I had
so
known
hung
that.
up on it.
No, but seriously, I mean, if you don't hold on to these failures for any more than an evening or an hour or a half hour or whatever it is, you know, are you also able to hold on to the successes, or do you let those go too?
I am self-proclaimed a pretty bad, you know, when people after the show or something, you know, if we get a compliment or folks come up, you know, I am certainly, you know, I'll be like, you know, it was all these guys. Like I have a very tough time giving myself the props that I deserve.
Is that why your grandparents have a bigger social media presence than you do?
That's exactly why.
Yeah.
I can't, you know, I gotta leave an air of mystery out here in these streets.
But, you know, is there something
That's a really sweet question too. I love that.
I mean, is there something within your team, within your colleagues, or, you know, something for yourself, needing to develop an ability to brag about yourself? I mean, that's for the business that you're in, it's pretty critical.
So true. I do feel like I'm very good at, especially on the teaching side of things. I think I'm really good at packaging and knowing exactly what I kind of offer in that realm. And I maybe because over the last few years, I think maybe because that was a more unexpected kind of love that I fell into was of teaching and directing and sort of that side of things that maybe because too, if I'm in real time figuring this out with you, is like I when I do those things, it's still team effort. Like I'm the coach of the winning team. Like I still kind of have other people to get to point to and kind of share that glory with. And I think that I would love to get better at tooting my own, you know, my own tootacha, but I really also kind of love that about me. I don't think I'm self-deprecating. I think I'm in a nice zone where I keep myself just sharp enough to, you know, have those Blair Witch moments, but then still go out and celebrate at the bar and relish in those successes in those moments. And then maybe, you know, the next day hit up in the journal and be like, oh, that was a rad show last night. I think I do a lot of that internally versus externally, like on social media or things. That is something I really struggle with. If you look at my social media, it is mostly my grandparents, as has been established. And then if you watch my Instagram story, I love, more than anything, I love promoting other people's shows. I plug people in Chicago. So, you know, I've lived here for almost a year. You watch my Instagram story, you're like, wait a second. She's definitely not in this show. It's like on one slide, it'll be like, you know, Simon's movie pub quiz, you know, that's at Boom in a couple weeks. And then the next one will be like, oh my God, go to Logan Square Improv and see Real Angels every Wednesday night at 9:30, which is a real show that you should check out in Chicago. And it's my favorite. But I think that's a huge part of me is I love being a cheerleader for my friends. That's why I'm in this. That's why I think this is such a team sport that I'm doing. You know, I think if I wanted to be an actor doing that kind of grind of it, I would. And I spend a lot of time being like, damn, am I doing this wrong? Because I don't want to, you know, audition for these shows or kind of go do like the self-tape grind that a lot of my comedy buddies have done. And life got a lot easier for me when I stopped needing it to be one kind of avenue to a certain destination.
All right. Well, if people go to that show in Logan Square, they can go to Tony's Burrito Mex on Belmont beforehand and grab some of the best Mexican food ever. If they are here in Amsterdam and going to see you in Boom Chicago, I say go to Ocha for the best Thai food. But you were telling me that you've got some theory about the 3.5-star rule or something like that, or the 3.5 out of 5 rule. What is that?
I do think so. This is a great, and it's not just here in Amsterdam. It's anywhere. There's a not universally, but I'd say a known theory that if you really want good Asian food somewhere abroad, you look for somewhere that has a 3.5 rating, because that probably means that it is just authentic enough. And we were discussing kind of about, like, I think to be authentic, it needs to be a little rougher on the edges. It needs to be, maybe the people working there are a little rude. Maybe there's something, the hours aren't quite correct on Google or something, something that makes it human, that makes it more like that. So you go to somewhere that has a 3.5 because the idea is that probably tourists have lowballed it, have low ranked it, and they've been like, this wasn't this, or this wasn't what my idea of this thing was.
The toilet paper was folded over wrong.
Exactly, like kind of that thing. So the idea is you look for somewhere in that 3.5 range, because tourists or people that are not familiar with, like, if you're going to, a certain place, or you want like a certain kind of cuisine or something, that they've lowballed it because it's not fitting into their ideas. But then people who, like us, really love kind of an authentic experience from a place have really highly rated it because it's a little more inexpensive, or it is a little bit smaller, a little bit more like that mom and pop kind of shop
or
feel to it.
Diner-like, yeah.
Yes, or diner-like. So if you get somewhere that has that like 3.5 rating, that's where and you could, oh my God, look this up. This is a real thing.
And if people want to look you up,
yes,
how do they find you, and where do they find you at Boom?
They I'm there too much. There's so much. I am there Wednesday through Sundays doing shows, and I have a website. One of my 2025 goals that I achieved right under the wire was making a website, and I do a really good job of keeping up to date with all of my upcoming shows and workshops. I travel around. I'm going to be in Geneva in March doing some workshops and shows, and I'll be in Belfast in May doing some workshops and shows. So I keep my website really up to date with that. And then my Instagram handle is Laura Maynard, and it's LAHRAH Maynard, which is a lovely ode to one of my best friends, Tony. That is a nickname that they gave me because my name is Laura, Laura, but most people say it Laura, but it's Lara, and so that's the handle is that to help with the pronunciation.
And what's the website? Because you said
website.
You've got a website.
The website is
the website.
First and last name. You're looking at the podcast right now. That's the spelling. It's lauramaynard.com.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you so much. It's been delightful.
Thank you. This is really charming. I loved all your questions were so great and wonderful. Shout out to Marcus. Oh my God. Shout out to the tea. Shout out to the studio. This is great.
It's stay warm and get in out of the snow, but you've got the perfect winter weather socks.
I've got them.
They're incredible.
Yes.
I love them.
Flash them on the screen.
Laura, thank you so much for your time. This was great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Dam Yankee is produced in partnership with NL Times, the top choice for English language news from the Netherlands. Founded nearly 15 years ago, NL Times is now the #1 site for information about this country, featuring more news stories every day of the week than any other website. Keep tabs on the latest top stories, features, and breaking news from across the entire country, including the 3 big cities, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague. So visit nltimes.nl now and find out what millions of people are reading about the Netherlands. Hey, thanks for joining us on Dam Yankee. Again, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode was produced by Marcus Engel, and the show, which is an NL Times podcast, was created by me and Peach Rizzo.